You know, in the history of NHL, we've had a lot of offensive defensemen, but the question is, ladies and gentlemen, who do you think was the first? Well, there's many arguments about that, but this guy might be able to claim it. Now, he was one of the most efficient players of his era, won 3 Stanley Cups, was part of a big money team with the Montreal Canadiens in the 1920s after several years of success in the NHA. And Sprague Cleghorn best be described as one of the roughest and toughest of his generation. Now, Henry William Sprague Cleghorn, his nickname was Peg, born in Montreal, Quebec, played 17 seasons of pro hockey between 1911 and 1929. The Westmount Star skated for the Renfrew Creamery Kings and the Montreal Wanderers in the NHA, and the Ottawa Senators, Montreal Canadiens, and the Boston Bruins in the NHL. He was a member of 3 Stanley Cup teams with the Senators in 20 and 21, as well as the Habs in 24. Now, his brother Odie was also a professional player, and they played 2 seasons together. Now, a tough and physical defenseman, Cleghorn had a reputation for severely violent play. We'll get into that in a second. Now, he was twice charged with assault following on-ice incidents and was subject to efforts to have him banned from the NHL. His reputation made him an effective defender, and he used his offensive skill to become one of the hockey's first offensive defensemen. Now, at the time of his retirement, Cleghorn's 169 career goals were second most in pro hockey by a defenseman, behind the great Cyclone Taylor's 181. Again, a Hockey Hall of Fame member in 1958. Now, born in Westmount to William John and Harriet Isabella Nee Ogilvy Cleghorn, he attended Westmount Academy and played on junior and amateur teams until 1909. Now, in the 1910 season, he played for New York Wanderers of the American Amateur Hockey League and scored 7 goals in 8 games from center forward. He was scouted by the Renfrew Creamery Kings of the NHA and signed a contract along with his brother Odie to play with them for the 1911 campaign. Sprague appeared in 12 games that season, scoring 5 goals with 27 minutes and penalties. During the season, he switched from winger defense as his coach, Alf Smith, felt his presence was better in that position. Cleghorn, like many offensive defensemen, enjoyed rushing the puck forward and developed into an offensive threat. Now, the Cleghorn brothers eventually moved to the Montreal Wanderers in 1912, where he spent the next 6 seasons. With the Wanderers, he established a reputation as a fierce competitor with an explosive temper. He was also an offensive leader for the Wanderers, as Cleghorn frequently carried the puck the length of the ice surface to generate scoring chances. In one game in 1913, he scored 5 goals against the Toronto Ontarios, and during the 14-15 season, he led the NHA with 12 assists while scoring 21 goals. Now, Cleghorn was well known for retaliating violently against opposing players he felt were taking liberties on his teammates, especially his brother. Once in 1912, he struck future teammate New Zealand in the back of his head after the latter had cross-checked Odie. For this, he was fined and suspended from the league. He also faced a charge of aggravated assault, for which he paid a $50 fine. In a January 17 game against the Toronto Blue Shirts, Cleghorn collided with Ken Randall and crashed feet first into the boards. He sustained a broken ankle that ended his season. Now, while recovering from his injury in 1917, Cleghorn suffered another fall while walking Icy Street in Montreal and fractured his other ankle. The injuries forced him to miss the entire 1918 season and cast doubts on his future in hockey. Now, after the Montreal Arena burned down in 1918, Cleghorn's rights were claimed in a dispersal draft of the Wanderers by Ottawa Senators GM Tommy Gorman, who paid for Cleghorn's transportation to Ottawa. After recovering from his leg injuries, he played for the Senators in 1919 and got 13 points in 18 games. Now, the next season, in a defensive pairing with A. Gerard, he scored 21 points in 21 games and 1 point in 5 playoff contests. That season, the Senators defeated the Seattle Metropolitans to win the Stanley Cup. Now, in attempted league parity, the NHL transferred him to the Hamilton Tigers in December 1920, but Cleghorn refused to report to the Tigers. The Senators asked that he be allowed to return to their team, for which George Kennedy, owner of the Habs, threatened to have Ottawa thrown out of the league. Cleghorn eventually signed with Toronto St. Pat's, playing with them for the regular season in which the team won the NHL's second half title. As the management became discontented with his play, he was eventually released from the club in March after St. Pat's were dismissed in the playoffs. He returned to Ottawa during their playoff series in time to be a member of their title team for the Stanley Cup in 1921. Now the league again attempted to transfer Cleghorn to Hamilton in 21, but he again refused to report. Just before the start of the 22 season, Hamilton traded him to the Montreal Canadiens for Harry Mummery and Amos Arbor. Now on to Habs, Cleghorn was reunited with his brother Odie. In his first season with his new team, he scored 17 goals and 9 assists in 24 contests. Now during the end of the season, he was named captain of the team. Now the Canadiens made the Stanley Cup playoffs every year over their next 3 seasons. He played alongside the great Billy Couture, and the pair established a reputation as one of the most feared defensive pairings in the league. On January 14, 22, Sprague and Odie each scored 4 goals in a 10-6 victory for the Habs over the Tigers. In a 23 playoff series against his former team, Ottawa, which of course he grown to despise, Cleghorn struck Senators defenseman Lionel Hitchman in the head with his stick. He was eventually charged with aggravated assault, found guilty, and fined $50. The incident enraged Canadiens owner Leo Danduran, who suspended him from the roster for the remainder of the playoffs. In another incident with the Senators in 22, he initiated a brawl during which he injured 3 players: Eddie Girard, Frank Neighbor, and Cy Dennehy. The Ottawa management attempted to have him expelled from the league, and a referee to describe him as a disgrace to the game. In 1924, the Canadiens won their first Stanley Cup in the NHL. It was the 3rd title of Cleghorn's career, and after the following season, Montreal sold him to Boston for $5,000. He played 3 seasons with the Bruins and acted as their unofficial captain. In his final season with the Bruins, 1928, he also served as an assistant coach. Now, during his time in Boston, he served as a veteran presence on the team and as a mentor to future Hall of Famer Eddie Shore. Now, after his retirement as a player, Cleghorn took to coaching. He joined the Newark Bulldogs of the Canadian American Hockey League as a player-manager from 28 to 29. During this time, he acquired his former Montreal teammate Billy Couture to serve as a defensive partner. A newspaper at the time stated that the move reunited the most formidable defense that ever played hockey. In the 31 season, he coached the CAHL's Providence Reds, and in 1932 he was named head coach of the NHL's Montreal Maroons. That season, the Maroons racked up 19 wins and 22 losses, finished 3rd in the Canadian Division, and made the Stanley Cup playoffs. The team was eventually eliminated in the semifinals by the eventual champions, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Cleghorn was also hired in 1935 by the Pittsburgh Shamrocks of the IHL, but was fired by the team near the end of the season over a dispute with the club president Ray Babcock over the payment of his salary. He was replaced by Albert Hughes, the team captain, for the 11 remaining games. According to published reports, Cleghorn refused to leave with the team for a game in Windsor. He claimed that the team had not been paid 3 days earlier. However, the Shamrocks ownership stated that the reason Cleghorn did not accompany the Shamrocks team on their trip was because he had to be disciplined for misconduct covering the past month. On March 14, 1936, Cleghorn filed a lawsuit against the Shamrocks ownership, claiming he was owed $420.50 in salary since March 2nd and a $1,000 bonus as per his contract. His final coaching stint was with the Cornwall Cougars of the Quebec Provincial Hockey League. He was appointed to the position on September 30th, 1947, and served for about a month. After his team went winless in the first 6 games, and having just suffered an 11-0 defeat at home, he was fired on December 14th. Now, according to, again, published reports, his fights on the ice were very numerous. He claimed to have been involved in at least 50 incidents during his career, which a player left the ice in a stretcher. Well, if you look at the number of seasons he played, it was 3 a year, so the numbers would make sense. Now, in the season when Ottawa unsuccessfully attempted to have him banned from the NHL, Cleghorn led the NHL in penalty minutes with 80. Now, according to some accounts, Evelyn Byng, the Viscountess Byng of Vimy, was so mortified by Cleghorn's style that she donated the Lady Byng Trophy to the NHL in 24 in a bid to encourage more sportsmanlike play. Now, what he did away from the puck led him to be a scoring threat and, like a positional player. Now, again, he had 21 goals in 19 games in 1915. That was a big number in a way. At the time of his retirement, he was second all-time in goals by defenseman behind Harry Cameron with 169. Now, the Hockey News ranked him 88th greatest player of all time in its 1998 book, the top 100 NHL players of all time. I would have put him higher. And again, the induction to the Hall of Fame in 58. Now, his personal life was a little bit freaky too. Now, on May 8, 1911, at New York, he married one Evelyn Irene Mabey, who he had met while playing with the Wanderers. He was eventually arrested, and 7 years later, for beating his wife with a crutch while he was recovering from his ankle injuries. The couple eventually divorced in 1921 after Cleghorn was found by his wife with another woman after she had reported him as missing. He was ordered by a judge to pay alimony of $1,000 per month to his ex-wife. Cleghorn later remarried twice, with his second marriage ending in divorce. His third wife, Vivian Gaudreau, predeceased him on December 18, 1943. Now, another big problem, of course, was a car accident on his way to work on June 29, 1956, on Commissioner Street in Montreal. He sustained head injuries and he fractured cervical vertebrae. 2 weeks later, on July 12, 1956, he unfortunately died of his injuries at St. Luke Hospital. He was 66 and was survived by his brother Odie and 3 sisters. His funeral was held at the First Presbyterian Church in Montreal on July 14th, and he was buried at Mount Royal Cemetery. Upon his death, his brother Odie remarked, "He was my brother and I don't like to boast, but I never saw a tougher or better defenseman than Sprague." 2 days later, Odie died in his sleep of heart failure and was found by his sister just hours before Sprague's funeral. Some people said he died of a broken heart. Again, final NHA totals: 84 goals, 33 assists, 117 points in 115 games. NHL totals: 83 goals, 55 assists for 138 points in 259 games. And in the playoffs, 39 games, 14.6 goals. Coaching career with the Maroons, 1932, 1922 and 7, where his team lost in the semifinals. And again, 3 Stanley Cup titles, 2021-24. Now, if Sprague would do this in the modern era, I don't think he would play any more than the 3rd suspension. But at the time, rough hockey was all a part of the NHA and the NHL. The boards were heavier, there was more open ice hitting, and usually the strong players would knock off the weak. So, but Sprague, my God, what a legacy for all the teams he played for, especially that time in Boston. You know, mentoring Eddie Shore. I think the reason Eddie Shore was such an asshole sometimes is that because Sprague was, on his on his back to be tougher and meaner and stuff like that. So if you like what we're doing here with our Vintage NHL podcast, especially the turn of the NHA NHL era, please let us know with a like, comment, and subscribe. And there is some documentaries on Sprague out there on YouTube. I ask you to check it out. And as Sprague would like to say, you better keep your stick on the ice. Have a good day. Bye.